Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and with me, as always, is my co host, Danny Gillette. And we're back on this Monday morning after a huge recruiting weekend for the Huskers. If you've haven't been following recruiting or if you're sleeping under a rock, it's been a big weekend for Nebraska. They've gotten a bunch of crystal ball projections for some of their top targets. We're fresh off some huge commitments of Davon Hall and Isaiah McMorris. But the big story, I guess, to lead off with, in my opinion, I guess, Danny, is Carter Nelson. I mean, getting, this, we all were pointing towards this weekend is the Huskers kind of their big chance with Carter Nelson, and it seems like they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and I think the value of Danny Kalen as a peer recruiter cannot be overstated. I think he's a big reason why Nelson would want to come here, and I also think from just reading articles and talking to some people that people are starting to buy in, recruits are starting to buy in, players are starting to buy in, and they're again really beginning to see the vision. I know we say this all the time. Recruits are seeing the vision that Matt Rule and his coaching staff want to put together. And I think with all of these commitments, others are realizing that Nebraska is building something special.
Yeah, it's set up pretty well for Nebraska. I know that they took the Georgia visit. Nelson took the Georgia visit, and Georgia got a couple of expert projections. Notre Dame had a pretty good visit. I never really was that worried about Notre Dame, to be honest, after that weekend.
No.
I thought the fact going into this weekend that nobody else had followed, it was just those two, picks, I thought was a good thing. And then when you looked at Carter Nelson's Twitter account, man, I mean, he was retweeting Hall and McMorris, all of their announcements. He was with Daniel Kalen at the College World Series. So everything pointed in that direction. We haven't got the commitment yet. There's a lot of crystal balls, but basically everybody that has a recruiting projection tool to their disposal has projected Carter Nelson to Nebraska. Brian Christopherson joined this morning, so he's a big guy at 24/7 for Nebraska. Obviously, Steve Wiltfong. I don't think I've seen Chad Simmons from On3, but the other Sam Spiegelman or whatever his name is, he put one in last night. So
Brandon Huffman, I believe, as well.
yeah, so everybody's kind of seeing the same things, and we'll see. I don't know if he's actually silently committed. I don't believe in silent commitments. To me, that's just until you announce it publicly, it means absolutely nothing. So whatever you tell the coaching staff or anybody else, until you put out on the Twitter page or whatever that you're committed, silent commitments mean absolutely nothing. So go out there and make your announcement. I'm hoping that it will come soon, but at this point, it seems like it's about 99% done for Nebraska.
And you kind of got the sense that Nebraska may be trending for Nelson when Michael Burt committed to Iowa on Friday a little bit. You kind of wondered if Michael Burt kind of knew something that we didn't. And landing Nelson would be absolutely massive. I mean, Nebraska has completely dominated in-state recruiting for 2024, and that's not to say that there's slouches in the 2024 class at all. I mean, they've landed Hall was a guy I really wanted. They got him. Kalen was a guy that many wanted, including you, Chris. I remember you kind of bemoaning Nebraska not offering or making more impact with Kalen early on, only to flip him. So I think we've gotten a lot of who we've wanted to as fans in terms of recruits, and I think the coaching staff has also done a good job of, even the walk-on commitments, I think have some potential as well.
Oh yeah, I really do like the walk-on guys that they've got for the 2023 class, and just even some of the recent ones are all guys that have had the opportunity to play junior college or FCS football somewhere else. So Matt Rule is doing a nice job on that side of things too. And yeah, I do think that the Michael Burt thing was a sign that Carter Nelson was going to go this way. I just thinking that Michael Burt probably didn't have a committable offer. They were probably like, we're going to wait and see what Carter Nelson does, and da da da. So it turns out that was a smart strategy, and we all said if they could get to that final visit, Nebraska set it up perfectly with Kalen committing, and then when Holland McMorris committed on Friday, you just had the feeling that Carter Nelson was going to join that momentum, and I think he has a tighter relationship, I think, with some of those guys than even I realized. I mean, with the not just Daniel Kalen, but some of the other in-state recruits. And I think you could see that come through in the visit. And I mean, it helped you had 8 guys that are already committed too on campus. So that was another smart
Yep.
thing for Nebraska. It wasn't just Daniel Kalen. I mean, it was a bunch of. So I think there was like 6 guys that visited this weekend that weren't committed, and I think Nebraska's in a pretty good spot for basically all of them. I mean, Grant Bricks probably is the one where we haven't really. There's been no projections or anything else, but every other single guy that was on campus, including Rex Guthrie, who started his official visit on Thursday. Every single guy, I believe, has gotten an expert projection from 24/7 or On3 arrivals at this point.
Which is kind of interesting because last week we are like, oh, they took a lot of, no star guys. Like, this is kind of interesting. And now all of a sudden they swoop in and do their work where they need to. So they're doing a good job of balancing out the class. I think it's always good to have developmental players in addition to the stars. And, we talked about the in state guys, but then you look at some of the out of state guys like Kawan Lacey, for example. I know that we were kind of stressing over Nebraska not landing or making any contact, it seemed, with running backs, but now all of a sudden Lacey has expert projections to Nebraska, and he would be the perfect fit for the Big Ten and the perfect fit for Nebraska. Just the way he runs, he's so physical, but yet he's shifty at the same time. So landing Lacey would be another huge get for Nebraska in the running back room and give us the depth that we've been looking for.
He would be a big one. I talked about him on Friday, and just looking, it was interesting to me. And I don't know if Matt Rule's tweet had to do with him, or it seems like maybe it was either the tweet where he said they messed up. Either has to do with. Here's my 2 thoughts on what that might be. Either it's Old Miss or whatever didn't give him a committable offer or something along those lines, because he didn't take it. I mean, he got a projection at Ole Miss, but I don't believe he took an official visit there, at least according to the On3 profile. So I don't that I thought was kind of weird. So I did see that there was an opportunity for Nebraska. He did take an official visit to Baylor. So it's either that Ole Miss didn't, give him a committable offer, or he's referencing the Rex Guthrie thing because the UNL business people, or a couple of people in that department, basically took a picture and posted it on Twitter and said, this young man just committed to Nebraska, being Rex Guthrie. And then they deleted it later. But so, I mean, at this point, it looks pretty strong that Rex Guthrie is committed to Nebraska, as well as a few others. But yeah, that's what I think Matt Rule was talking about. Either Ole Miss, for whatever reason, not giving Kewan Lacey a committable offer, which is total speculation, or the Rex Guthrie thing, because that was kind of a screw up by those people. I don't think they meant to, though. But
I kind of got to be aware of what you're posting on social media now, no matter if you mean to or not, honestly. But my favorite picture of the weekend was Matt Rule with a chef's hat and a pan with some stir fry, which I took to mean as he was cooking. He was cooking on the recruiting trail, cooking a nice stir fry, and they really did do a really good job of, and I tweeted this. We talked about the March visit weekend being a big weekend. Well, I think June was perhaps, with the amount of actual commitments and the type of players we landed. I think, this past weekend was much more impactful than the one we had in March.
yeah, I mean, March was about the March one was about, really, I think, gauging who was interested. Who was really interested in being a Nebraska Cornhusker, and we saw, Brandon Baker, I'm Gatelin Bear, the other. I can't even remember the guy's name, but Nathaniel Frazier is another one that pops. These guys all took visits, but they're not serious. They're not serious recruitments. Nebraska's not even recruiting Gatelin Bear anymore. They're out of it. They're done.
Good.
So just, I mean, that's from a Michigan reporter. EJ Holland arrivals, he reported that, but Sean Callahan flipped his pick, so it's like those guys, that's what I said, and it came true. And some people, kind of ripped me for saying it, with Gatelin Bear and Baker. But when those guys decided not to visit in June, Nebraska was basically out of those recruitments. Like, there's no way that you're just going to sneak back in with a top 100 guy in September and not have him on campus for like 4 to 6 months. That's just not how recruiting works. And I mean, I can understand it from, with Gatelin Bear, it can make a little more sense because he's not coming right away. But I just never bought that, like, Brandon Baker's going to take all these other visits and then, show up in September. I mean, maybe if a bunch of weird stuff happens, but it really seems like, to me, I mean, I think this recruiting class is going to be wrapped up basically by the time the season starts. I don't think Nebraska's really, I think most of the recruiting they do during the season is going to be, focused towards 2025, because if all these guys come up and commit, I think we have like 6 guys trending, 5 or 6 guys right now. That puts us at like 22.
Yeah.
And then you got, they're going to take, obviously Caleb Pyfrom, And then I believe that they would take Grant Bricks regardless of what. I think they would take those two guys regardless on the offensive line. And then, I mean, really outside of that, they need, some defensive line help. And that's pretty much it. I mean, they've pretty much satisfied every other need, tight end, running back, receiver. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them add another running back. I know they've got a guy, I think his name is Hunter Stevens, or I'd have to check, but he's on the visit schedule for September. He's a kid out of Texas. Hunter Andrews is his name, actually, I believe. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
okay. No, I remember him now.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, maybe you could add like a second running back, but I mean, they really mostly they need edge and defensive line help. I think that's pretty much where they're at right now. Other than that, I feel like they're pretty set in this class.
On the Bear thing, with the type of turnaround that Nebraska wants to do, and how quickly things can turn around in college football, if you can land receivers, which they've shown they've been able to do, you really don't have time to wait 2 years. I'm fine with us being out on Bear. I don't want to wait the 2 years because although he's going to be a good football player when he gets back, it's not like he's going to lose his skills entirely. But 2 years is a lot of time in the college football world, so I'm fine if we don't land him. I mean, Michigan, I think would be a better spot for him at this point with the amount of bodies in the wide receiver room. So uh, we'll see how it all plays out, but I'm very excited about the prospect of just the amount of talent and the amount of depth that we have. And you talk about the running back room. Say Kawan Lacey commits. Now you have Lacey. You have Quentin Ives. You have Anthony Grant for this year coming back. You have Gabe Irvin this year. I mean, I think we're in a pretty solid spot depth wise, and then not to leave out the special teams guys because they're important too. Punters and kickers are people too, my friend used to say. But Nico Ottoman, I believe, committed to Nebraska on Friday, who is a very good kicker. I believe the top kicker in the state of New Jersey. So I mean, they are really covering all the bases here, and it's refreshing to see. And it's also kind of crazy, like you mentioned, that they could be wrapping up this recruiting class very soon. It's good to have that sense of finality and the sense that, like, okay, now it's time to focus and get ahead for 25 because we haven't had a coach that's done that in a while. Just that sense of we're done with this class, now let's get ahead, not let's scramble to find some recruits as fast as we can.
Yeah, and I mean, I still think obviously they're
Yeah,
gonna be trying to fill a few needs, but it's not like they're gonna be, they're gonna have 20 some. I mean, they're gonna have like mid 20 commitments by that first game against Minnesota. So
which
I
is
mean,
nuts.
yeah, it's more than I thought they were gonna have. I mean, honestly, so they are going beyond and they really are investing in high school recruiting, which I do think is a good thing. And even with Matt Rule's talk about the transfer portal, he was more focused on guys that were going to be multi-year guys. So it's an interesting strategy, and I think it's going to pay off. But and why we should say with Gatelin Bear, I mean, this is one recruiting expert, saying Nebraska's out of it. I mean, everybody said Nebraska's out of it with Davon Hall too. So I mean, you never really know with Matt Rule, but I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think it was really interesting if you read some of the reporting from Callahan and like from Steve Sipple about how this whole thing went down with Davon Hall, and basically that Nebraska canceled his official visit at one point. And we're just like, if you're not, we're not going to waste the time on you if you're not interested. And that kind of, I think, woke him up a little bit. That Nebraska wasn't always going to be a fallback. Like your spot's not going to be sitting here for you if you don't want to be here. And then it seemed like there was a meeting between Rule and his dad, and that really kind of flipped things around. But I just think the fact that, Rule really is, he really is genuine in his positions. And if he says like, we're not going to take you, or, we don't want to be on the back burner, like he puts his money where his mouth is. Like he was fully committed to walk away from that recruitment. And I think that helped Davon Halsey, it really made him decide whether he wants to be a Cornhusker or not. And at the end of the day, he wanted to be. So that was a good thing for Nebraska.
If David Hall didn't want to be a Cornhusker, Matt Rule, with his recruiting, prowess, would be going out and getting another guy right away. I mean, there's no time to waste if you don't think Nebraska's your top school, and Matt Rule's made that evident. And now Nebraska is sitting pretty. I mean, we have a top 20 recruiting class. I think we're 17th ranked right now according to
Yeah.
24/7 Sports, and um, it's just this month of June alone, it's been a crazy blitz of crystal ball actions, and I haven't seen anything like this in quite a while.
Well, really, since Daniel Kalen commit, I mean, he deserves a lot of credit too. I mean, not only Matt Rule, and Matt Rule deserves credit for how that whole thing went down, but Daniel Kalen's really the guy that's sold this thing. I don't think they're,
Yeah,
if he wasn't here, I don't think they would get Carter Nelson. I don't think they would get Holland McMorris either. Not saying that I do think that Garrett McGuire did a spectacular job. I 100% Matt Rule too. Those guys really brought those recruitments home, but Daniel Kalen, I think you have to give credit to where it's due. And I think these guys know how good he can be. And that's another thing too, is you were just mentioning about all these commitments, and I think we're up to 17 now. I believe they have got three 4 stars, but I think that number's. I think Daniel Kalen should be a 4 star. I do believe that Isaiah McMorris should be a
yeah,
4 star. I mean, like that guy is impressive. 10.62 in the one. It's like, man, you got to run. There's going to be like a requirement through the door of running like a 10.6 to be a wide receiver in Nebraska,
yeah.
man. It's crazy.
Which I
It's
like. I like because, and I hate bashing players, but this is the first player that came to mind. Watching a guy like Wyatt Lure run with cement feet, I was just like, ugh. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't want to watch that at all. So having this speed is a nice change, and you know, speed kills. And I think a lot of defensive backs are going to be out of breath when they play Nebraska in the coming years.
Yeah, and then man, Ernest Campbell 10.2. I mean,
Yeah,
holy
he is.
smokes. He's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched some of his highlights from the other day. He is crazy, and it's like with a lot of these guys, it's on film. It looks like they're walking, but they're moving so fast that that it just looks like a jog to them. It's just crazy,
Yeah.
crazy speed.
And yeah, Keywan Lacey's really fast. I mean, we mentioned Rex Guthrie just ran like a 4.4 whatever. He ran a really good time. So yeah, I mean, it's Quinn Clark is a. I mean, I don't know that I don't think Quinn Clark runs a 10.6. Maybe he could, but I definitely know he's got a 4.5 in the 40, and he's a
No,
strong
he is good too.
he's a strong athlete. And yeah, it's wild with he just they the speed, yeah, the speed that Nebraska's investing in with all of these guys, it's really impressive, and I think it's going to pay off in the Big Ten especially. And yeah, I have a really, I mean, thinking about the offense that they could have with Malachi Coleman and Carter Nelson, Ian Flint, Ernest Campbell, Jaden Doss, Bryce Turner, Jalen Lloyd from last year. I mean, there's all those guys run dynamic times. A lot of them are bigger type receivers too. I mean, it's not just, I mean, Malachi Coleman's 6'5", Bryce Turner 6'2", Jalen Lloyd, I'm pretty sure is 6'1" or 6'2".
Yeah,
Um, you
Josh
know,
Fleeks. I mean, he's not a
yeah,
recruit or a younger player necessarily, but Fleeks has speed too. I mean,
yeah, yep. And he's good. Yeah, he'll probably make an impact this year. And Quinn Clark is 6'5". I mean, Ernest Campbell is 5'7", but man, that guy, I mean, put him in the slot, like, man, he's just going to be dynamic in this system. I'm probably as worried about him as anybody else, just because I know Texas A&M is right in there, and that always worries me with those guys. I know that just they've got the NIL money, and Texas A&M is a big program in Texas, but so I'm really hoping that we can finish and close it out with Ernest Campbell. I feel like just of all the guys though, he's maybe the one I'm worried about like the most, not even Carter Nelson, just because of who is still in it, and from because he's from Texas, I just feel like that's going to be a harder one to kind of put that one in the coffin, I guess, so to speak, put the final nail in the coffin.
I wouldn't be too worried, but I could definitely see where you're coming from. But it's nice to recruit wide receivers and recruit positions and not have to worry about a certain guy committing or else this position is, screwed. Oh no, Kwan Lacey can't commit. Now we have no running backs. Oh no, there's no wide receiver depth. So we're relying on this one guy to commit and come in and make an impact right away. It's good to kind of have that security blanket of not only bodies in the room, but talent in the room. And that's something that Nebraska has, fallen short of in recent years, and I don't think that's going to be a problem with this staff.
No, I don't. They have a very strong board, and it's the other thing is they've made a lot of evaluations, with these camps and stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure that they've got other kids on their list that they haven't even offered yet. And I think that it was really proactive, and because there are a lot of kids that, or they have that strong senior year, they get that senior year offer. And I think Nebraska was kind of proactive with some of those kids, like, hey, these guys are already productive. They're putting up good times. Like they're everything that, like Rex Guthrie is a great example of that. He's got all the measurable skills, for whatever reasons, just being, underrated. And
Braylon
Nebraska,
Prude is the name that came to mind for me.
yeah, Braylon Prude. I mean, yeah, just, and when 24/7 kind of did their ranking updates, they gave him, bumped him up, and I think he's like an 800 or something in the composite now. But they're like his best football is definitely ahead of him, and so he was one of the guys that was kind of highlighted as a you know a guy that they best basically is going to be able to outplay his ranking at the next level, whatever it ends up being. Because not all 3 stars, like we said, not all 3 stars are created equal, and a lot of high 3 stars end up getting drafted. I mean, that's just like even the Isaiah McMorris and Daniel Kalen range. I mean, a lot of that type of player does get drafted for sure. And I think Nebraska's going to have more guys that move up in that range, and some that, frankly, are under. I mean, even with Davon Hall, he's taken his ranking. He was like in the top 200 in the composite. Now he's like almost 400th. So it's like, why? I don't understand why he's fallen, because he's got, last year he had over 900 yards receiving. He runs a 10.65. Like, I don't understand why him and McMorris aren't higher up in the rankings.
I had the answer to that question, and I would be a much happier man. Because some of these rankings drive me crazy. I mean, I don't know what exactly go. And sure, you can give me the formula until you're blue in the face, and oh, this is what they do, and blah 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 blah. But honestly, a lot of these don't make sense. A lot of these don't make sense. I mean, the fact that Malachi Coleman is not, Malachi Coleman's still a 4-star, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know how he's not a 5-star. I mean, I guess injuries or injuries last year played a big role, but I don't know how he never got a 5-star, recruiting ranking. But in any event, I think that it's going to be interesting to see the development of all of these players, and I think that it's going to really put a testament to that developmental piece for the coaching staff. I mean, they pride themselves on development, and now they have a chance to really kind of bring that point home.
Yeah, and it's really wild just to see how, the board has really filled up. I mean, they've got 8 commitments. I guess it's been over, it was within like basically a week when Holland McMorris committed. That was like 8, and now they've got, 5 or 6 there. So I mean, you're talking about, and like almost 14 commitments within, maybe a few weeks. I guess we can, kind of switch over to, that topic is when are some of these commitments actually going to happen? Because I think that's the question every Nebraska fan's like asking right now. I know we've got a lot of rumors of silent commitments for a bunch of dudes. But when do you think that we're going to start seeing some of these drop with Carter Nelson, Keywan Lacey, Quinn Clark, maybe, Guthrie, Ernest Campbell? Am I missing anybody? That's all of them, I believe, right?
I'm looking at my calendar, and I don't think you're missing anybody. Let's see. Campbell, Clark, Guthrie, Lacey. No, I think because numbers wise, that would make sense too, because that would put us at what, 21 total?
I think 22,
22?
but yeah.
I'd say probably the second week of July. That's just a guess. I can't see them really pushing it to the end of July. I feel pretty, because a lot of decisions don't happen in August because kids are getting ready for the upcoming high school season. So I'd say probably the second week to the middle of July would be my guess. I don't know. What's yours?
Yeah, I would think. Honestly, I feel like some are going to come this week, but I'm hoping, maybe that's hope more than, but I'm hoping that Carter Nelson drops his commitment sooner rather than later, just with all the momentum there. I mean, just with everybody putting in their crystal balls, like it just seems like he's already, done the silent commitment or told the staff he's going to commit. So we'll see. I'd be surprised if that one drug on. I mean, the longer that one takes, the more worried I'll get a little bit, because that's really the one. I mean, I want all these other kids, but that's like the one I'm watching more than any other. But yeah, well, some of the others we'll see. I would think early July. I mean, with Quinn Clark, there's nobody else that, I mean, the Montana schools have offered him, but they're not on Nebraska's par. So I would think if his offer is committable, which I would have to think it is at this point since he's getting the crystal balls. I mean, I feel like his commitment's going to come fairly soon. Guthrie, I think, is already basically committed. He just hasn't announced it yet for whatever reason. And everybody has it. Some kids, they want to announce it on their dad's birthday or their mom's birthday or their great uncle's birthday. You know what I mean? Like everybody has so who the hell knows when they want to actually announce it? But yeah, I feel like within the next week or two, we're going to have a strong run of commitments, and Hayes Fawcett's going to be, making a bunch of Nebraska edits here in the next week or two. He's probably making one for Carter Nelson right now as we speak.
He has a great job, I'll tell you what. He can literally just make edits all day, and I wonder how much he gets paid. But anyway, no, I think honestly we'll see some in the next 2 weeks or so, and then let the games begin. I mean, we're what 62 days away. Let's see.
I'm not even sure, but yeah, something like that. I know that camp starts on July 30th, so we're basically, 30, 35 days or so from fall camp starting. So I mean that's pretty sweet. I think it's
Yeah,
good. Matt Rule, was talking about getting these coaches deserve a break, man. Oh my gosh, it's like, did they
yeah.
ever? They've been working their tails off, so it's been. So that's why I'm not going to be surprised if they. I mean, because it is the dead period. You can still text. You can still, the electronic communication. There's no barriers on how much that you can do. I don't think you can do like Zoom meetings, but I don't know. Um,
Can you do
but
FaceTimes?
Probably. You probably can. FaceTime probably counts as a call. I bet you probably can do FaceTime.
I would honestly find all the loopholes I could if I was a coach, just to see what I could do during this dead
Yeah.
period. And you're totally right about this coaching staff. Just getting some rest. They haven't. I always wonder how much Matt Rule sleeps. He must be like Adam Schefter, because I don't think Adam Schefter sleeps a ton
Yeah.
either, and he's always up breaking rumors all over the place. But I mean, man, I'm really excited for August. I'm excited for the future, and I think it's gonna be. I think Matt Rule is really going to turn this thing around, and I know we said it a lot, and I know we said it before with Scott Frost, but I really get the sense that this program will be in a good place for many years.
Yeah, like with Scott Frost, I feel like it was just wishful thinking. I don't think that's the case with Matt. Matt Rule is the real deal. And he goes about it. It was like um the coach of Bellevue West, and I'm forgetting his name, but he did the interview with Sipple yesterday, and he was talking about Kalen and his guys all committing there. And basically, one of the quotes he said that stood out to me is that adults are now in charge, and because Scott Frost wasn't. If you can't show up on time, if you can't be sober, if you know what I mean, if you
Yeah,
if you can't
no,
meet with
yeah,
one of your biggest recruits because you take too many, you're not an adult. You're just a dumbass kid that played football and had fun his entire life, and that's fine. But this program needed a serious adult, and it got one in Matt Rule. And it's too bad that Scott Frost didn't care or love this program enough to give it 110%. And that to me is where the biggest kind of the thing that pisses me off the most about his era, is like,
yeah.
Scott Frost can't look at himself in the mirror and say, I gave 110% at this Nebraska football job, because you didn't. You half-assed it from day one. You hired your bros. You thought you could be lazy. You didn't recruit in-state kids. You can't even show up and be sober for meetings when your freaking job is on the line.
Yep.
So that's like, I mean, Scott Frost just did not care enough about Nebraska to even give it 110%. And so it's just refreshing that Matt Rule, it sticks out to me that, Trev Alberts, talked about, like, I want a guy that doesn't have hobbies, that's a grinder. Well, you got that in Matt Rule. And credit to Trev Alberts, man. He knew who he wanted from day one, basically, after he fired Scott Frost and Rule got let go. And like I tweeted, man, the fact that the Carolina Panthers could not find a quarterback might be the best thing that ever happened for the Nebraska football program.
And people love to blame Matt Rule for Carolina, but Carolina is still not good. I mean, winning this division, the NFC South, like I was looking at the quarterbacks. You have a rookie in C.J. Stroud. You have Kyle Trask. You have Derek Carr, and you have Desmond Ritter. I mean, what a gauntlet that is, right? But like, I mean, I don't like the Carolina Panthers have kind of struggled outside of the 2015 to 2018 where some of their better errors, honestly. But in any event, and I think Matt Rule does have hobbies. He's showing up to hockey games and showing up to events
Well,
around the
tape we
community.
we know he loves ping pong, so
We love he does love ping pong, so I think he has hobbies. Let's just say healthier hobbies, healthier and more sensible hobbies.
and yeah, just just a guy that, I mean, he just is really invested in making this work, and he's doing it all the right ways. So it's really fun to see. It's going to be fun to you know not just talk about the recruiting wins, because I know that we've done that a lot at Nebraska, and Scott Frost had some good recruiting wins too. At least on paper. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I can't wait for fall camp and that first game against Minnesota. I know it's going to be tough, but I really feel good about this team going forward.
I can't wait for game number 2 against Colorado. I can't wait for that one. I mean, and I guess while we're on that, I mean, all the rivalry aside, I hope Deion Sanders is okay. He's going through some stuff right now, and you never want to see that. So I hope
Yeah, I
he
had to have some foot surgery, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it's for a clot of some sort, and those are scary. Clots are very, very scary. So I'm hoping he's healthy and ready to go. Because say what you want about him, but he's also injected life into that Colorado program. So it's good to see some of these, not like old time schools, but schools that were once really big long ago come back and kind of be the center of attention again. It's good for college football just to kind of mix it up a little bit and get some of these older schools better again.
It's been fun to, from my perspective as a Nebraska fan, to have like Colorado and Oklahoma on the schedule, just that old, rivalry game. Because there's Iowa in the Big Ten, and that's kind of a real, but I do think that the Big Ten, I mean, not that I don't love that Iowa got three permanent rivals, because they're three, I mean, not outside of us, I mean, somewhat weak rivals. I mean, so I wish we had gotten more, in the sense that to avoid having to play like USC and Ohio State and Michigan all in the same year, which we're going to have to do in 2024. But I do think they got it, but there's nobody that I feel like a true, like hatred for, except Iowa. I mean, there's like the natural hatred of every team in your conference that, and just like the teams that, like I hate Wisconsin and Minnesota now because they've beaten us so much. But like once we turn you know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know. It's just fun to have those old rivalries that you kind of grew up with. And I know we're not going to get to see those games much, but this Colorado Nebraska game this year is going to be pretty fun.
In Wisconsin, I don't think they're going to be any slouch either. I think Luke Fickell's going to have that
Yeah, they'll
ship
be
turned
pretty
around
good.
pretty quickly. So it's going to be a fun new era of football. And yeah, 2025 or 2024 is going to be absolutely, absolutely brutal. So we better keep recruiting like we are now, and hopefully we'll catch up. But I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how things play out. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what USC and UCLA do to the landscape of all of this.
Yeah, it really will be. And they, like UCLA's got Dante Moore coming up, one of the best, quarterbacks in the, from the 2023 class. USC is just loaded for bear. I mean, they, Pete, Lincoln Riley, I almost called him Pete Carroll, but that's because I was going to say he's recruiting like he's Pete Carroll, man. Like, holy
Yeah.
cow. It's not,
Yep.
he not only put a fence around California, like Pete did, but he's getting the national. I mean, so that place is going to be a juggernaut. And I mean, giving them the Big Ten money too, once they get that Big Ten money, because they're on like the terrible, not that it matters that much. I mean, the school will probably be making that much more money, but USC is going to be a juggernaut. So I mean, you're going to have, and then Penn State's right there too. I mean, Penn State doesn't get talked about enough, but they just won 11 games, and they've got a
Yep.
five-star quarterback. So it's like you've got four really good programs, and I'm hoping Nebraska can work there. I'm hoping that Nebraska can finally like live up to being what folks thought they were going to be when they joined the Big Ten. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like a national power, but they're
Yeah.
supposed to be a top. They were supposed to balance out the West, and it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say I haven't really done that. I'm just looking forward to Ohio State games being like 34, like 28, not 63-0 or something crazy. Like that's
Yeah.
all. Like just some sort of life uh, into the program, especially when it comes to the bigger games. And I think Nebraska will be able to get back there. I mean, how what their ceiling is, we don't know yet, but I think we're gonna be in line for some really fun football between our opponents and just us in the coming years.
And I mean, the thing about it, even last year, there's not many games where, I mean, yeah, the Michigan game, we were kind of outgunned, but we didn't have Casey Thompson for that game. But there's not very many games like going into it where Nebraska just, was totally outmanned. So I feel like, especially with Matt Rule and the investments that they've made, uh, you know, and part of it too is just having, not an adult, but just how many times did we say having a competent head coach would, make a huge difference with this program. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. I mean, I just for this year, I think the one addition that people aren't talking about enough that like I think we're going to be talking about in December is Tony White. I really
Yep.
think he's going to be a star, and I think this defense is going to carry. Is I think the defense is going to be the star of the show this year. The defense
Yep.
and Jeff Sims.
And that's not a bad thing at all. If your
Yeah.
defense is the star of the show in the Big Ten, that's really good. And White and McGuire are two coaches that I'm worried about losing to bigger schools, and that's a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's better to lose on the bigger schools than have to fire them and buy them out. But you look at Garrett McGuire, and he's younger than me, but he knows a hell of a lot more than me.
Yeah.
So he's
He's
not.
going to be a head coach within
Yeah,
10 years.
his age is not reflective of his ability. He is a really good football coach. He knows the game, and much like White does. And I think honestly, another star on the staff that doesn't get talked about, and is going to be a star, is Bob Wager. I think
Yeah.
Bob Wager is going to be a really good coach too. So it's going to be interesting to see, how this coaching staff does and how everything plays out. And I think it's a real testament to getting people that align with your vision. And Matt
Mhm.
Rule, I think, did a good job of doing that as well. I mean, I really think he put together a staff that is hardworking, likes to recruit, and is willing to make Nebraska work. Not five different coaches with five different identities like we had last year.
Yeah, if you hit on the head though too, is he built a staff with an eye towards recruiting. I mean, not obviously the coaching and development too, and like you said, Bob Wager is a damn good coach because he's been winning Texas high school football games for a long time. He just needed someone to give him the opportunity, and Matt Rule is smart enough to do that. But yeah, and so he's a great recruiter, and McGuire, I mean, and like Evan Cooper, I mean, these guys,
Yeah,
EJ Barthel, they're just really good recruiters, and Tony White isn't, he's not throwing out the bombs on Twitter like Terrence Knighton, but he's doing work in the background. You know what I mean? And Terrence Knighton's doing a good job. So yeah,
yeah,
it's
he is.
really, and we'll see with Donovan Raiola, kind of the one of the holdovers, but he's got some nice offensive linemen, and they're in a good spot with Grant. I would love to see him get Grant Bricks. I mean, it would be nice to land a top 100 type offensive lineman, and if Kansas State's like our top rival, I don't see why we can't win that recruitment. I know Alabama offered, but it doesn't seem like they're as much in the mix as Kansas State, Nebraska.
And you know what? I noticed, with Jake Peters, Gibson Pyle, I mean, these linemen are just really, really aggressive. They'll smack
Mm-hmm.
you in the mouth. And
Yep.
I love that. And I feel like part of Rayola's struggles last year was a lack of consistent offensive scheme. And
Yeah.
so I think having a more consistent, kind of direction on offense will help him be able to coach better too. Because I mean, as much as we all wanted him fired last year, I get the sense that like nobody was listening to him. I mean, I think I even read last year that Mark Whipple, and Donovan Raiola didn't like each other. Well, gee,
Yeah.
I wonder why. You're setting up your linemen for pass blocks every single play. You're not letting them maul people when in order to run the football. So I think having a sort of uh, cohesiveness offensively combined with a developmental offensive line staff will help Rayola too. Because truth be told, they did a lot better towards the end of the year. I remember the Iowa game; I was
Mhm.
very impressed. They did a really nice job, and hopefully that can carry over to this season as well.
They as much as we have maligned them, they did do a better job at the end of the year, and part of it too was Mark Whipple didn't call plays to help us. I mean, how many times did he? I mean, Casey Thompson's literally just getting murdered, and then he comes out there with four wide receivers, just no empty protection. Okay, here you go, guys. It's like no, it's like what are you doing, man? You can't.
Meanwhile, the
Come
defense
on,
is like sucking back
yeah.
oxygen from being
The,
on the field for 70 minutes and a half, and all of a
yeah,
sudden we go 4 wide, 3 and out again. It's like,
yeah.
come on.
Just no, empty protection. Like it's like, are you trying to get Casey
It
killed or
was
what's
weird too
happening?
because that Iowa game, they had a very long offensive drive that was
Yeah,
perfect clock management, perfect running the football, perfect, close out the game type of drive. I'm like, where is this
yeah,
all the rest
yeah.
of the season? But
Um,
uh, hopefully that's
it
all
is.
behind us now.
Yeah, that'll always be poor Mickey Joseph, but that'll always be his shining moment. That victory over Iowa.
I was gonna,
So
s- I was gonna say he doesn't have too many others lately, but that's all right.
yeah.
Anyway,
Um, But yeah, it's no all that stuff, but the play calling and all that with Rayola definitely does it does make an impact. I mean, if you're not gonna if you're not gonna call plays that help your team or that kind of geared toward the team that you have, it's like sure if you have five NFL caliber offensive linemen, you maybe can do that, but that wasn't the case last year. So I think the offensive line is going to be like a pleasant surprise this year, and even just taking off those stupid knee braces seemed to help a little bit from watching them in the spring game. They just seemed, at least watching, I don't know about the other guys, but Bryce Benhart, I noticeably could see him moving better. I don't know if that is with the knee brace or just him getting in like better shape or whatever, but he looks good, and he looks like an NFL guy to me, like potentially.
Matt Rule said the same thing about
Yeah.
Bryce Benhart, and quite honestly, it could be a rejuvenated line with confidence. I
I
mean,
mean, the dude's 6'8" for 6'8", 320 for Christ's sake. I mean, he's built, like just kick
but
some ass, man.
yeah, I mean, it could also be a confidence thing because as much as we like to rip on the offensive line, they don't want to do poorly either. I mean,
Yeah.
they got beat up every single week by us and other writers and fans, and they were probably sick of dealing with it too. And having a staff that is just together, working on the offensive line, I'm sure that gives them a confidence boost as well, and it gives them a reason to want to play for this coach.
Yeah, and yeah, in all aspects, I think we'll be looking better next season. So, as we look forward, make sure you guys will wrap up this episode here, but make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button.
Thank you for
Um,
600 subscribers, by the way, everybody.
yeah, we're at
Appreciate
600.
it.
We're trying to get to 1,000. So help us out. Hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of our videos or podcasts. Go into the comment section. Let us know what you think about this weekend of recruiting or this upcoming season or any other topics that you'd like us to, discuss for episodes. We've got, about a month or so and got a lot of time to do some preseason, videos and such. So if you've got some things you'd like discussed, get into the comments and let us know. But thank you so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Check out huskerbigred.com too for all of our other written content. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.